One, two, three. 1, 2, 3. And hello, fellows. Herogon here. Today is Thursday, April 27th of 2023. It is now 6:22 p.m. and boy, has this April been a bit of a wild ride. Whether it's me doing my on-the-job training at the local movie theater, which has since been finished, finishing up the last few weeks of my college classes with American history and intermediate algebra. Oh boy, I have to admit, these past few months from the time that I've gone into college and gotten out of the college classes, it's been quite the ride. Of course, I do think my ride is only beginning with regards to any sort of college education. Of course, that's best saved for another time. That's the best I can give details for you on without, how you put this, accidentally doxing myself or being a bit too TMI, which I've already done enough for a bit of my life. So without the way, let's get into this week's improvements for the fighting game framework for Funlog Friday / Showcase Saturday. Now this week called for damage decay and scaling. Now if you know fighting games, it's not just the hit stun that gets reduced as you keep on hitting characters, it's also the damage amount. If you keep on doing the same sort of moves again and chaining them, you'll probably get a little less. Now, in the fighting game framework from Sean the Bro, it used to be that damage was, for the most part, linear. It's pretty much all there was to it. Now, in the X code, there have been a few changes with regards to receive damage. We now have an all-new variable called damage decay modifier. Now, this is simply a float, just like the hit stun decay modifier and a majority of these modifiers. They mostly use floats instead of the typical integers. Now, we of course also have something in receive damage, because that is quite another big part, and that is a boolean. Just like the should ignore hit stun decay, we also want a boolean for should ignore damage decay, and we want to have it equal to false, because all of these booleans and having their equals here need to be at the end of the inside of the parentheses of receive damage. Now going into the .cpp of the character files, we have a lot with receive damage. We've got same bool here, no need to set it if it's done in the .h file already. Going further into here, we have our damage decay stuff. We have if num stun frames is greater than 0, and we should ignore damage decay and other player, with that last part being used as a safeguard just in case things crash, which we do not want to happen. Trust me on that. We've got a variable within called damage with decay, which will equal our damage amount minus the other player combo counter times damage decay modifier times 0.01f. Of course, this is a bit of a hard-coded value of 0.01f. Now, if damage with decay is less than 0.01F, then we set it to 0.01F. A sort of clamp, if you will. That way, we don't have it going way lower than it needs to be. Of course, we have player health minus equals the damage with decay, which is needed. And if you want to have a scaling damage decay instead of the damage decay being a bit linear, we can have plus equals 0.25F for the damage decay modifier. And then we track the damage dealt for frame data using last damage received and the damage with decay times 100. Otherwise, if it's not none stun frames is greater than 0 and should ignore damage decay and other player, if none of these happen to be true, then or even one of these happens to not be true, then we just go into player health minus equals damage amount. We track the damage dealt and the damage amount times 100. Finally, we have in HitboxActor a new value for our hitbox data called shouldIgnoreDamageDecay. This particular boolean here, which is quite important. This is why we have the boolean shouldIgnoreDamageDecay for this part here. We of course want all of that to be in this hitbox data. That way we can adjust the values of any sort of hitbox that comes in easily in a data table. And we don't need to put anything for HitboxActor.cpp. With that, that is pretty much it for the C++ side of things. But in terms of the moveset stuff, there's a few things. We want to add our shouldIgnoreDamageDecay boolean into our little moves data structure, which is using our hitbox data table which will essentially be used for this part. Now, we of course have all of our values here. In strike hitbox is what we want, and in the anim BP and character BP, in the HitboxActor BP, we want to attach all of these new values. shouldIgnoreDamageDecay. Oops, mistake there. We of course want to do this in both active and projectile hitbox, as well as throw, and it's pretty much the same. You just make a new value, you can drag one of these here, and it'll automatically create a new variable here. We of course won't be needing that one, we just already have it. Now the same goes for create projectile hitbox, and as well as throw hitbox. And that is pretty much all that's needed for the anim BP part. With regards to HitboxActor, there's only two parts needed. Just plug shouldIgnoreDamageDecay from break hitbox data into ReceiveDamage for both the check collision event part as well as the check projectile collision. And that will be all. That is pretty much it for the blueprint part. Now going into the game itself, let's see how it goes. I of course go into learn versus practice like usual, beachside karate dojo, and of course I will always be choosing Adam Mortem, of course. Skip through that. Then of course we can have our output log open just in case we want to see if things are working. Now, I will continue to combo my other enemy here, and as you can see, it will continually get damage for a long while, and of course it resets if the stun frames are quite low. We could of course speed up our attacks, but I think that is pretty much good as it is right now, and it's pretty much easy enough. Of course, if you want, however, we can also have the shouldIgnoreDamageDecay on, as well as hit stun if we want to, and go back into the game, and you will see that it will stay at the damage amount no matter what. It's typical damage of 5 points. Of course, you may have to excuse my Macintosh computer for being a bit slow on things. Now, if you notice here, the damage is always going no matter what, and the stun frames stay as they are, all thanks to our hitbox data. We of course can have our hit stun decay ignored, and we can have our damage decay back on, and vice versa. Of course, that is all dependent on what you would like to do. And let me tell you, it's pretty nice to have all sorts of ways to modify the experience for yourself, whether you want a different hitbox stuff. Of course, our damage is continually going down, but it will keep going at 1 because that is how things will be. Of course, there's an issue if we decide to do a kick. Essentially, the frame advantage and the stun frames have issues. Actually, it's just the stun frames going into negative, thanks to the fact that it will keep going like this. And of course, ouch. It kind of hurts when the stun frames go negative, because I don't want that. Thankfully, Sean the Bro should probably be able to come up with a solution soon enough. And as for the frame advantage being negative, that is actually fine, because we do want frame advantage to have negative sometimes, just like in Mortal Kombat 11, if anyone has played that. With that, this video has gone on pretty long, so I will cut right to a bit of the chase. That is pretty much it for our improvements. Credit again goes to Sean the Bro for all of his stuff. It's been pretty amazing here. Oh, and before we go, in the .cpp, we want to have our damage decay modifier's default value set. That was a bit of a close call, of course. And in our end combo, we want to set to 1.25f for the other player. We set it back to normal. And for our default value, it's 1.25f. Oh boy. This is probably not my most organized, but I really don't have a script. So, yeah, there you have it. Credit again goes to Sean the Bro for all of his tutorials. They've been pretty amazing, and I look forward to the next many that are going to be coming soon. With all that, I've been Herogon, you've been you. I look forward to seeing you guys again real soon. Goodbye, everyone.